Okay, welcome everyone to the February ZoomTRAK meeting. Glad you all could attend. We have a full slate of presentations today. We have quite a few guests already, and it's going fast. Looks like we've got to repeat. Not only do we have a lot of people from the U.S., we already know we've got one from Northern England, and we have one from Northeast Spain. So it's good that we're getting international participation, and we'd like to see more. We're going to start it off with some announcements. Bruce, are you up first?
Yep, I'm ready to go here. So first of all, we've introduced this 50% anniversary discount code of NTRAK 50. So if you have somebody who's not an NRail member and or a friend that you want to bring on board, it only costs $5 for the first year. Just a quick note, if any of you are new members and you paid the full price, we are adjusting your membership for an extra 6 months to cover that. So we also have another deal that we put together, which is buy a T-TRAK caboose now and you'll get a full year of membership. So if you buy the T-TRAK caboose at the regular price, all of you are members already, but if you have somebody who's a T-TRAKer, you might want to mention that to them. If you go to the website, you will see a new addition up top, across the top, called Forum. You do have to be logged in order to actually take part in the forum, other than just read what's posted there. So log into the website. That'll give you additional information as well as access to the forum. We also want to remind you to send your events for your club, local shows, etc., to events@nrail.org, and we'll publish that on the website. And of course, suggestions, comments, thoughts can always go to info@nrail.org. We have two major conventions coming up this year. The first one is the National N-Scale Convention, which is, well, I put down Reno here, but it's actually, I think, technically in Sparks, which is like right across the tracks or whatever. It's real close. The convention dates run the 14th through the 18th, and the website is real easy to remember. It's nscaleconvention.com. The layout setup is on Thursday, June 15th, and then the layout runs Friday and Saturday is tear down around 4 o'clock because the banquet is Saturday night. The layouts that we'll have there are Fremo N, NTRAK, and T-TRAK. If you've not yet registered your modules, you need to do so. It's real easy. Go to nrail.org under activities, events, and then just scroll down to where the registration entry is for the National N-Scale Convention. Now, just a comment, this is registration for your module. There is a separate registration for the convention itself. There's a discount if you're bringing a module. Let me interject
here that you all understand it is not necessary to register for the convention in order to bring a module and participate in the train show. Not in the train show, in the layouts. You won't be able to participate in the train show or anything else unless you register. Only the layouts.
Okay. The next convention coming up is the Texas Express, and even though the layouts are not part of Texas Express convention per se, they're part of the National Train Show, which really is a part of the convention activities. That's in Grapevine, Texas. The convention dates are August 20th through 26th. That's for the full week. Their website is easy to remember also. It's 2023texasexpress.com. And again, the layouts are Fremo N, NTRAK, and T-TRAK. And this year we're going to do something different. All three layouts will be connected. The layout setup is Thursday, August 24th. and the layouts will be running the Friday, the 25th through Sunday. And again, register to bring a module at NRail.org, activities and events. One other activity we're going to have is that Friday evening after the show closes, we're going to, Razor, what's the name of the restaurant?
Will Hoyt's.
Will Hoyt's. And we're going to have a banquet. We're going to have speakers. We're putting all of that together now. We expect banquet tickets are going to be about $30 a piece. And so we hope all the module owners, and even if you don't bring a module, can join us to celebrate the 50th anniversary. So the convention's coming up. Registrations are at nrail.org, and that's for modules only. There's no charge to bring a module, take part in the layout, and just have fun. The National N-Scale Convention has a discount if you're bringing a module and you want to sign up. You don't have to, but if you want to, there is a discount for that. And on the NMRA side, there was an event in St. Louis where the Operation Roadshow used Primo N modules for operating sessions in the convention lobby, I believe. And they're doing the same this year, again, with more N-scale modules being used. So just to show you, this is the website. And you'll notice across the top, it's home forum. That's the forum we mentioned before. And then under activities, you have rail events and rail events. And if you click on that, this is the module registration for Reno. And this is the module registration for the
Grapevine
Express National Train Show. Oh, yeah. If you have questions, you can always send them to layout at nrail.org, and we'll make sure it gets to the right person. And if you have any questions in general, info at nrail.org. And there's also a contacts page on nrail.org, which has a list of all of the leadership people and ways to contact them.
And just for further clarification, the National Train Show in Grapevine, if you do have a module there, that does get you free admission into the National Train Show, which is different than the N-TRAK National Convention and the N-Scale Enthusiast Convention. And for those of you that don't know, Grapevine is a suburb in between Dallas and Fort Worth. The next thing up is Terry Moore, and he's going to talk about T-TRAK. Can you believe that? Terry, it's all yours, my friend.
What would make you think? Talking T-TRAK. NRail, of course, supports the many modular formats. This month, I'm going to nod to home layouts. So this Talkin T-TRAK, although it is T-TRAK specific, also gives something for the home layout folks to think about. T-TRAK modules are more than just two tracks on a board, but we'll start there. An 8-foot-long folding banquet table is shown here. The basic T-TRAK module starts with two tracks on a base. T-TRAK modules can also be the basis for a home layout that needs to be disassembled from time to time, or the modules can be removed as required to be included in a show layout. Or the whole home layout is fairly transportable as its own show display. These are standard T-TRAK corners with standard single and double modules that are 14 inches deep. Skyboards are optional, but can be used to create different scenes on each side, which can add interest to home and show layouts alike. One side city, the other side country. Before you actually construct your T-TRAK modules, you can plan your layout and assemble your track as it would fit on your planned module bases. You can still operate trains as your bases are built. Anyone who's ridden on a train knows there are miles and miles of only the tracks your train is traveling on. Sometimes double track, sometimes single. So there's nothing wrong with your modules only having 2 tracks. But to add interest and more railroading possibilities, add a couple of passing sidings. Extend your passing siding through the corners. This inside corner siding has a radius of only 249 millimeters, which is less than the desired standard minimum of 282. These 249 millimeter radius corners may limit the type of locomotives and rolling stock that may be operated on this layout, so consider your roster plans. At 9.8 inches in radius, most equipment that was once rated for 9.5-inch corners should be suitable. Newer large locomotives and rolling stock with body-mounted couplers may be limited to larger radii corners. Those 3 tracks corners are still suitable for inclusion in show layouts. The 3rd inside track would just be idle. Non-blue, white, white-blue wired modules included in a layout cause electrical dead shorts when wired to the supply buses. If they are not identified, the affected section of the layout will need to be disconnected from the buses 1 module at a time until the short is cleared when the offending module is disconnected. If there is more than 1 module at fault, they will be discovered as the disconnected modules are reconnected to the supply buses. There are 3 ways of connecting power wiring to your Caddo UniTRAK. Individual pairs of terminal joiners can be inserted between any 2 pieces of Caddo UniTRAK. 62 millimeter long single track feeder tracks and 62 millimeter long double track feeder tracks. Whichever you will choose depends on the wiring situation. The most useful are the individual pairs of terminal joiners, since they can be inserted between any 2 pieces of track where the 62 millimeter straights could not be used. The feeder wire connecting plugs for the 62 millimeter single track feeder tracks can only be connected to the track piece 1 way. Using single track pieces, the blue-white, white-blue wiring standard can be created by reversing the position of the 2 tracks relative to each other, with the blue wire supplied rails on the outsides. A pair of terminal unijoiners allow installation anywhere 2 pieces of track come together and allow for placement in the required blue-white, white-blue positioning. They can be used in corners or next to turnouts where the 62 millimeter straight track pieces can't be installed. Due to the wiring, they cannot be used at the track ends of a module. Bury them inside the module's trackage between any 2 pieces of track, such as between the 62 and 248 millimeter track pieces of this single module. The 62 millimeter double track feeder tracks use the same plug design as the singles. As a result, one needs to be modified for the blue-white, white-blue standard. I simply disassemble one plug, swap the wires side for side, and reassemble the plug. Regardless of which feeder wiring system is used, remember to label the end plug of the feeder wire for the red or yellow track they are connected to. Standard T-TRAK wiring practice places the blue wires of both the red and yellow buses under the same power supply terminal and the white wires of both buses under the other power terminal. If multiple power supplies are used, connections must be identical on all power supplies. Separate power supplies may be used for each bus. The alternate wiring practice places the wires of the yellow bus under the opposite power supply terminals of the red bus. thus creating a pseudo blue-white wiring condition at the rails, allowing the use of crossovers. If multiple power supplies are used, connections must be identical on all power supplies, and again, separate power supplies may be used for each bus. Many layouts do this as a normal procedure to allow the use of crossover tracks throughout the whole layout. Okay, now that we know how to wire this little traveling modular home layout to allow the use of crossovers, let's add some. Left or right crossovers could be used, but these double crossovers are more useful on a small layout. Now you can pass on the main tracks and have the ability to perform runaround moves.
Really?
So let's add some sidings for the railroad's customers. Now we have a railroad, and you can start mounting track onto the modular bases you've been building. Or we can back up a little bit and add some standard Steve Jackson junctions. This creates a third loop and an opportunity to run another train. If you're using a skyboard view block, the hole for the trains to pass through could be disguised by a tunnel portal, a roadway overpass, or a signal bridge, or maybe you have another idea. And they can be different on each side. Add some passing tracks and sidings and you have a layout. Since it uses T-TRAK modules, it's portable, easily dismantled and put into storage, or individual modules can be included in large show layouts where we are all invited to participate. And it all started with 2 tracks on a board, or at least a module base. A little bit of a DC disclaimer here for this thing. For independent operation of trains on a DC powered system, you may want separate individual power supply throttles for each of the smaller inner loops and one for each of the top and bottom halves of the large outer loop. This will require insulated rail joiners at each location marked with a red dot, creating layout power sections or blocks. Depending on the desired amount of operational flexibility, further division into blocks and alternate power supplies may be desired. This is not required by a DCC powered layout of this size. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you, Terry. I'm sure we're all going to go out and get going on that. And everybody took notes, so I'll be ready to have their modules all set to go in Reno or in Grapevine. The next thing is we're going to go out to the far west coast and talk to Lowell Smith, who is going to tell us what's going on with Smith Rail. Or RailSmith, sorry.
Well, before I start my clock, I have to say congratulations, 50 years is awesome. I joined NRail in 1984 and met Jim Fitzgerald probably for the first time at a convention in that next following year or so. But that's a lot of great exposure of what we're all about, taking the layout to the public and the great camaraderie. So anyway, congratulations. I'm excited about what you guys are doing, and thank you to the leadership. You guys are just doing a great job and carrying on the torch, right? So what I'm going to share with, and I'm going to talk really fast because the clock is ticking. I'm going to share about what's the latest with RailSmith models. And for those of you who are not familiar, first of all, a shout out to all my friends out there. I see a lot of you. It's good to see you on this broadcast today. But RailSmith, we purchased the tooling. My wife and I purchased the tooling from Walthers of their N-scale passenger cars in 2017. We rebranded it RailSmith, And so for those of you, and there's many of you who are not familiar, that's what RailSmith is. It's the genesis of the great models that Walters built, and now we've expanded on that. The cars are direct to consumer, so these aren't going through other sites or other wholesalers and so forth. So it's direct to consumer at railsmith.net. And I've introduced a program called Build a Train. The idea is I'm not going to give you a whole train at one time, like one of our great manufacturers does, but I'm going to tell you where we're going and what train we're going to build. So here's the website. You click on, and this is either RailSmith or Lowell Smith Signature Series. By the way, I've been doing this for 30 years. Last year is 30 years for Signature Series, so it's kind of a milestone for us as well. But RailSmith is really an exciting thing. It's a whole new game. And so here on RailSmith, we're explaining what we're doing, the particular passenger cars and trains. And then you'll see here the different logos. Now, this actually was from a presentation I did several months ago. There's quite a few new logos. Now, gentlemen, if you don't see your favorite logo there, it might be there now. So you just have to go check. And so you'll click on the logo, or there's a drop down also brings you the name, and you click on that and it'll take you directly to a train, to a railroad. In the case of Southern Pacific, I think there's 4 trains there. Northern Pacific, there's 2. Great Northern, there's 2, so forth and so on. And that'll take you to a consist and a story of the railroad, of the train, and it's short and to the point. And here's the consist that we're building. So we're building a train. These show cars that are open for order. That is now an old clip. Those cars, the Helena, Walla Walla, and Missoula cars have now shipped, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But it's a constantly updating the website, which is current. This presentation is just a little old. So appreciate your patience. So you'll see the consist of what we're doing and where we're going. You'll see the current releases. Now, the website is archival. So what I mean by that is that everything that's ever been released is going to show there. And if you're late to the train platform and the train's already left the station, well, it's going to show you what cars you may have missed. But don't worry, there's more coaches coming. There's more sleepers coming. It's just you might have to wait a little bit longer. But if you wait too long, then you'll miss the cars that are currently available, because these production runs are not really huge runs. We do a pre-order system, like everybody does right now, and we do our orders based on the interest in pre-orders and so forth. So it has happened, not often, but it has happened where a production run arrives and it's already sold out. I don't like that to happen. We like to get it right, and we're doing pretty good with that. But and we have a way to show you when things are almost gone to not miss out on that either. Here's current releases, some stuff that, well, the engines, we've got more F units coming for this particular train. This is just an example of some of the current stuff. Trains we're building: City of Miami, Florida Special, Prospector, and the Texas Chief were just announced. Working on the Empire Builder, North Coast Limited, Texas Special. Now there's a special train. Southwind, Frisco Meteor, City of San Francisco, and the Louisville and Nashville Pan American. That's a smattering. There's about 25 trains that we're building right now. And here's some photos of some of the cars that we've released. Louisville and Nashville, the prototype sleepers. So one of the things that I do on the website is I will tell you in the description of the item if it's a prototype car or if it's not. And if it's not, then we call it a classic car, a classic version of that car. And so you'll actually know if it's, some guys say, well, if it's not 100% right, then I'm not going to buy it. And you know what? That's a shame. Life is short. Trains will be even shorter. if that's the idea. But we've been really blessed. The factory's been doing a great job. We've been getting the colors right, the decorations are right, the prototypes have been amazing. And if it's a classic version, it's not far from the prototype. These are Pullman standard models. So far, we've got some Bud models that we're going to do. Here's a train that's a lot of trains have never been done. City of Miami, for an example, we've got a fleet of 3 coaches that are still available. There's not many of those fleets left. That has been available for a while, so that's getting down to the end of that. Rock Island. Now there's a story. These are Rock Island coaches. We introduced Rock Island sleepers. Now, the sleeper that we did, I wrote it right on the website. I said, this is a 10-6. This is a classic version of this sleeper. Now, I'm talking about a sleeper. I'm showing you a coach. I'm aware of that. But let me just go here. So a lot of guys, Rock Island guys, got all excited, and the sales the reservations were very, very good. And then some gentleman wrote back and said, wait a minute, Rock Island didn't have any 10-6 sleepers. I said, no, it's an 8-6 sleeper, and you'll never get one. So this is a classic version. If you like that, that would be good, because we got a lot more Rock Island coming. And right now, there's really a lot of Rock Island in the queue. We've got a diner, a fluted RPO. I don't know if I've announced that yet or not. But anyway, there's more Rock Island stuff coming, and so forth and so on. One of the early trains we did was the Atlantic Coastline in the purple scheme. Did that with the release that I had done with microtrains under a different line. The Pullman Park series with the Atlantic Coastline, the purple. Microtrain said, we like purple. So then they did some purple. And so there's more purple out there. So that's wonderful. As we're building the trains, we need more cars. So we're taking and going beyond what we've got and building brand new cars that have never been before built in N scale. This is the Pullman Standard Plan 4119, which was used on the Northern Pacific. And there's quite a few railroads that had a car just like this, a duplex sleeper. And so we had that car built with and without skirts. And then from design to reality, here we go. These were just released in September, and they came out really, really well. We're just really, really pleased. This Northern Pacific, the top image you're looking at there is the 1947 North Coast Limited. The railroad called that the Streamliner scheme because streamliners were new in the era. We just came from heavyweight and we're moving into the new terminology. So that's the Streamliner scheme. And I'm told that this paint scheme has never been properly done in a production run in N scale. So I'm incredibly excited to do that. Northern Pacific is my family heritage in railroading. Great Northern had some duplex sleepers, and it was Pullman standard, but the Great Northern cars actually had the vestibule on the opposite end. And so I call this a classic version of those cars. There are 3 different road names available. Here you see it, the difference with the vestibule on one end. And don't let metamerism stop what you're looking at here. The Big Sky Blue we matched really well with those companies that we all agree that Big Sky Blue is what Big Sky Blue is. Now, you ask what metamerism is. Metamerism is how light affects color. Oh my gosh, there's a word. Remember that word, because we all argue about metamerism. What color is it really? Anyway, so those are out and available right now. I've been working with some of the other manufacturers to help bring motive power to our trains. I released an F3 and an F5 in the Northern Pacific in this scheme. Last year, we got F7s will be coming this year. And we all need power. This is my railroad, the Spokane, Portland, and Seattle. And those are coming this year as well. Those are open for reservation. Next car that just released. This car literally just shipped, weeks ago. And this is the Western Series Sleeper. Again, this is a classic version of this car. We used some existing parts and tooled up some new parts to create a car that never would be made in N scale. Why? Because there's only 17 of them in existence. And but there's a lot of reasons that we decided to do this. Because there are a lot of versions in the yellow, the Union Pacific, and then we've also got Wabash in that as well. When we found out that Wabash cars, this sleeper was pulled on the Texas Special, I'm going, well, that's a good excuse. So let's do that. And actually, a lot of guys have been loving the Wabash, which we just barely scratching the surface on. I'm not sure how far that will go. So we did a blunt end sleeper. This car is the 10.6 that we have with the blunt end on it. It comes with a working light. And here's the actual production piece. These are even though this just shipped at the end of the year, there are few of these left. These are almost gone. Use the True Scale, Microtrain's True Scale coupler for this end, for the end piece to make it look really, really good. Those drum heads are not lit, but they are photo etch. And they really, really came out well. And the light is blood red. It is a perfect red on the tail of this. Everybody who's got this car really, really loves it. We announced new diners. I'm talking fast. Those are open to order right now in a lot of the different schemes. There's a total of 5 different diners. Skirts, without skirts, kitchen door, no kitchen door, fluted, not fluted. I don't have any fluted pictures here. You'll see them on the website. Everybody's loving the hamburger grill. So those are coming. We announced the RPO. The diners will be here this summer, just in time for a 50th anniversary of the NRail NTRaK. Fluted RPOs were more recently announced, and those are coming. The different train shows that we'd love to see everybody at. Amherst, we just did that. The great show in Monroe, Washington. If you guys live on the west side of the Rockies, you need to be in Monroe, Washington in 2 weeks, because that show is really, really awesome. It's not as big as Amherst, but all my friends in California, I said, tell me a show that's as good as the Monroe show that happens every year in California, and I'll come to it. And all of the mover and shaker friends that I had in California said there isn't one. So I'm going, wow, Monroe is really special. It's a really fun show. We'll be at the Rocky Mountain Train Show in Denver, of course, at the National N-Scale Convention in Reno, and we will be in Fort Worth, Texas this summer to see you. Now, I think you said that the banquet for the celebration is at the Texas show. Isn't that right, Razor or Bruce? Is that what you guys said?
It is during the Texas show on Friday of the show, and the location is in Grapevine.
Yep, right. Grapevine. I wrote Fort Worth, but okay, we know what we're talking about.
I mean, the restaurant is also in Grapevine.
Okay, great. So really important stuff. You've got to see this. Barb and I, this is my wife, Barb. We've done 5 private car charters over the last 10 years. And in June, we have a charter going from coast to coast. We've got 3 classic rail cars we've got the Milwaukee Road Superdome, and this is a way to travel to the National N-Scale Convention in Reno in style. We'd love to have you. We don't have many bedrooms left at all, but there is possibilities, and I want you to see that. If you guys got your phones and you can shoot a QR code, this is an ad that is going to be in the magazines shortly. We've actually opened up daytime dome seats. So we've never had a Superdome before, and we've only got about 25, 28 people having rooms on the train. It comes with, we have our own chef. We've got 2 sleepers and this dome, actually 3 with the car coming from New York. But shoot that QR code and it will take you to the website where you can then go from there. but there are legs of the trip that are available. And I'm telling you guys first, I did send it out in my e-newsletter, but these legs are, you know, I mean, who wouldn't want to go through the Rockies in a dome car, right? It comes with meals and so forth, and the information is there, and you'll see that. So I hope that you guys would join us for something like that. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. This is a trip of a lifetime. It's a bucket list thing. You know, we can't take it with us, so let's enjoy it while we can. And this will be Barb's and my 6th train charter, and we're really excited. It's our first one since COVID, and everybody is really chomping at the bit, excited to go. But I know that I have a roomette. I think I have 2 roomettes going each way available. That'll be in the Cimarron River. A great passenger car. Barb and I got to get on that car. That car, all the cars are in immaculate shape, and we'd love to have you. So that information's there on the website under tours. And here's my contact information. RailSmith.net, Lowell at LowellSmith.net. You guys reach out if you want to talk about trains. You want to talk about RailSmith, you want to talk about the trip, we'd love to have you. Next arriving, and as I wrap up here, I'm in 16 minutes, so thank you for the extra minute. The next coming in about 6 weeks will be the duplex sleeper for Great Northern and Milwaukee Road. There's 3 road names in the Empire Builder, and there's 2 road names in Milwaukee Road. In Milwaukee, it's Minnesota River and the Zumbro River, and I couldn't remember off the top of my head what the Empire Builder names are, but these cars are great additions to our Build-A-Train as we're extending the length of the trains that we're building right now. Thank you guys so very much. What kind of questions do you have? I'm happy to take that as long as the guys allow me the time.
There are a couple of questions. Number one, do you have your cars lit? Are they already lit, or are your light kits available?
Razor, thanks for that question. One of the things that I love about N-Scale is that it looks real. I want it to look real. And I've never been satisfied with any N-Scale passenger car lighting situation because it's all too bright. So I've been working on that with the factory to dial that in, and I expect soon that we will have the lighting kits available. So we got a realism light. The cars have metal wheels. They got the pickups. So literally, this is a drop-in lighting kit. It literally just drops in. The only car that I have right now that is lit is the observation car, and it comes ready to go with the light on the tail end. And we got no light creep. It really came out nice.
All right. And one other question. You talked about the engines. Do you have one manufacturer, or does it vary?
Well, in 30 years, I've used all of them. Intermountain, Atlas, Broadway. Right now, we've used Broadway a lot because Intermountain wasn't producing their F units after the factory debacle 4 years ago, and they're still coming back online with that. We've got E units coming and F units. We've released F units in several lines from Broadway.
Okay. All right. Now we're going to move on now, but we always have the chat screen. If those of you have questions for Lowell, you can put them on chat. As a matter of fact, there's one for you now, Lowell, that you can take care of directly.
Okay.
And we will move on to our next presentation.
A question for Lowell Smith. Are any of your passenger cars available as unpainted, suitable for repainting as Lackawanna?
Yeah, and I tried to respond to your question in the text there. If you go into the header, there's an assorted queue, and you hit that, and you'll see what's available right now in undecorated.
Oh, okay.
So it comes and goes. It's limited, and maybe Lackawanna is something we might do.
Yes.
Always listening for that. Thank you.
Hey Lowell, can I order those Milwaukee Road cars?
They're open for order right now, Dave.
Okay.
You again go to that main page, click on actually under Milwaukee Road. That's a good question. under Milwaukee Road, you got to go to Union Pacific.
Okay, because the
And
Thanksgiving.
right. You'll see City of San Francisco or just Union Pacific, and you'll find it there.
Okay, thanks.
You betcha.
Any chance of auto train?
You know, that's an interesting point. I need to get that book. I was actually looking at that about a month ago. I know that Morning Sun has a book on that, and clearly we could do something like that. That's for sure.
Okay, great. That way I don't paint it myself.
Yeah, there you go. This is a good presentation. All right, you guys. Thanks so much. See you next time.
Thanks, Lowell. See you.
Bye-bye.
Our resident photographer, videographer, Jean-Marc Gadoury, has a presentation on the Blue Ridge and Western layout and the tours involved with that. So JM, your turn, my friend.
Thank you, Razor. I can't let Lowell get too far away without saying I was given a special request today by one Daniel Chu. He's a member of the Richmond area NTRAK, and he said he wanted a shout out. If he could have his name thrown across the airwaves today, tell Lowell Smith he's very much a great Northern fan and very much interested in what you got to offer. So we'll leave it right there, Daniel. You're welcome. I'll take tips later on this week. All right, I'm going to share my screen right now. What we're looking at right now is the Brew Railroad. The Blue Ridge and Western Railroad emerged from RANTRAK. RANTRAK is the label that describes the Richmond area NTRAK. And it's been my distinct honor to have followed our organization president, John Wallace, around last weekend at Amherst Train Show as we kicked off the celebration of 50 years of N-scale modular model railroading. And what I get to tell you now is a story that is born out of NTRAK, out of our very organization. So watch with me here. I'm also going to turn on a laser pointer. I think I've got the ability to do that here. And there it is. Bingo. Okay. Slide number one. All right. So the objectives of this tour this afternoon, number one, I want you to duplicate what we've done. If you've got any inclination that you like what you see, please do it better. Number two, reveal the process that leads to the outcome. I'm going to show you how we as an NTRAK organization managed to put together a layout that we're very proud of, and hopefully you'll find out why. Finally, third, we're going to immerse you in our plausibly prototypical fictional narrative. There's a mouthful. Plausible. Yeah, it is possible. Prototypical. Yep, we kind of modeled what we do after the real thing, except it's totally fictional. So it's a narrative. We are storytellers. And that's the bottom line here is I want to inspire the storyteller in you. Even if you're not modeling the Pennsylvania Railroad per se, if you've got Steve and Steve's model railroad, we want you to take that same storyteller concept with you. All right. So here's what we're going to see this several times throughout the slideshow, a layout tour roadmap. We're going to start with a history of RANTRAK because I think some of you are going to identify your own model railroad club story in our story as well. And then we'll talk about the Ashland, Virginia clubhouse where our layout is located. And then we're going to show you the floor plan and the objectives we have. We'll show you some of the insides of the bench work. We're going to open up the hood on the track plan and the electrical. And then we'll wrap up with the narrative, the very narrative of that plausibly prototypical fictional story. And we'll finish with the scenery. All right, so let's start with the history. What we're looking at right now is an excerpt from a document written by our first club president. His name was Ted McCormick. And the roots of the Richmond area NTRAK reach back to Lynchburg, Virginia in the late 1970s. Now, you should all know by now that NTRAK itself launched in 1973 with the shows out in San Diego. And so by 1978, the owner of a local hobby shop who was seeking to expand his customer base interested in a small group of N-scalers, something called an NTRAK modular railroading. And it was from those early meetings that the Central Virginia NTRAK Club was established. Now, about that time, the Richmond Freelance and Prototype Model Railroaders, That's a 501c3 organization. So the RFMP model railroaders had begun the tradition of displaying a small layout at the Science Museum of Virginia. And in 1981, the RFMP wanted to expand the show, and our first club president, Ted McCormick, volunteered the services of Central Virginia NRail in hopes of recruiting enough interested N-scalers to get a club started. Man, I hope you all just underscore that line right there. The little invitations that we make, the little opportunities that we create can lead to amazing things. So in 1981, the NRail concept first appeared in Richmond. That year, and a man named George Hughes set up an 8x16 layout at the Science Museum, and it was a tremendous success as a local recruitment tool, and there was a number of interested members that came out as a result. What we're looking at here is some of those early shows. Some of those early members are actually pictured here. Some of them have long since retired, moved on, and maybe in some cases moved on in life. But as an expression of their gratitude for the success of the annual train show, the Science Museum of Virginia made space available in their building on the 3rd floor. So we, as RailTrack, along with our RF&P model railroaders that included HO and Lionel, we all had space on the 3rd floor of Broad Street Station, which was the home in Richmond to the RF&P Railroad. Now, the organization is called RF&P, but it's not the Richmond, Fredericksburg, and Potomac. No. It's the Richmond Freelance and Prototype, because we're model railroaders, all right? Now, there was a variety of concerns associated with RailTrack and getting us involved, getting us started, getting modules built. Some of those members had no experience whatsoever. But there were other factors that aided in the expansion in the early 1990s. First, in somewhat larger work area in the Science Museum enabled more construction and improvement. But second, we're looking at Bob Crowder right here. Bob is no longer with us, but his experience in carpentry, track laying, electrical skills led to a better quality work product. And we had several new club projects, including a set of yards and 3 modules that had a very crowd-pleasing track configuration. And RailTrack started to gain more public exposure outside of the Science Museum, simply by appearing at local shopping centers and also at several Richmond area Greenberg and Great American train shows. So I really think there's a lesson there. If we can find somebody, just one person who's got the skills and the inclination to carry us to the next level, who knows where your layout can go. So it was these activities out in the community that brought out new club members. There's a whole number of them listed here. Some of them are still members of our club today. In fact, they're going to feature prominently in the next photographs I show you. These individuals helped RailTrack to grow even more through additional events, such as a successful Christmas layout in a local county, and also participation by several of our members. Listen up, Northern Virginia. Several of our club members brought their modules to Northern Virginia NRail's running trains, 1996. At the time, that was the largest NRail layout at the time. And what an amazing show that was. Now, further, the increased exposure led to other NRail groups coupled with the club's relocation. So we did relocate at this point out of the Science Museum up to Ashland, Virginia. And we also created our own NRail concept, kind of a little composite known as Twin-Track. It was 2 tracks running around, basically a dog bone style layout, no center pit. And we also did some downtown Richmond Christmas shows. And then there was this little unconvention that our organization did with the very huge amount of effort and help from our Northern Virginia brothers. It was called the Unconvention No Bull. All trains, all the time, held in 1999 at the Richmond Raceway Complex. And here you see several of those early members. Bob, wow, and right there, those are the convention cars that we offered that weekend. Several of our featured members, Tony DeMasi, Tom Kaiser, working at modules. That was there within Division 6, there at that 1999 convention. So these are some really historical photos. And what you need to know right now is like, JM, where's this Brew Railroad? Every experience that you're seeing photographed here led directly to what you're about to see. All right, so that was the Ashland, Virginia clubhouse. Well, that was the history of RailTRAK, and now the clubhouse. There it is. This is what the clubhouse used to look like, a little courtyard that had trees and all that. Think of it today, none of those exist, but the storefronts do. We've got 6 unique storefronts divided between HO and N scale, all located in Ashland. And what really got us famous, I say famous, is that when Jim Fitzgerald promotes anything you do, that makes you famous by definition. This was in the N scale magazine in August of 1999, describing a big NTRAK layout. That is the actual design of the layout that was featured that year. And you'll notice right here, this was the RailTRAK segment. It was just a dog bone, but everything else in there were a variety of different loops. And that's when digital started to take command at that show, as it had at the previous show in 1996. And we followed up 1999 with 2002. We had to go from Unconvention 1 to Unconvention Part 2. And so there's the ad that we posted up in N-Scale Railroading, our N-Scale magazine. And we held the actual convention. The train show was held in the Broad Street station. There's a picture inside the tents set up underneath or over top of the sheds. So they literally preserved the sheds, covered over the track with a concrete pad. That is where we held that train show back in 2002. And spawning from those shows where we were getting together with other NTRAK clubs and we were running trains all the time. We weren't doing clinics. We weren't doing a lot of other conventions. We weren't traveling away from the venue. We stayed right at the venue so we could run trains as much as possible. And we discovered we had some friends and some colleagues, and we referred to them as the Eastern N Lines. And those groups got together in 2003 to put on the first Danville Rail Days. So there's a connection too. All right, so later that year, after that Unconvention 2, we're at the Science Museum of Virginia. You see our own Doug McBee working here on a very intricate bridge. And we weren't quite sure where that bridge was going to go yet, but we're about to see where it was going to go. And then here's some of our other club members, or Tom Kaiser and Dave Beasley, very instrumental in bench work and so much of the early scenery of our layout. And Dave Melling, who is our club electrician. We're going to see a lot of his work here in just a moment. So here we are doing where we do most of our planning, right around a table that looks like that with some beverages. And usually it's after a train show on a stack of napkins, no less. And here's a club meeting. You guys might recognize our own NRail's secretary, the NRail newsletter editor. There's Steve Stallnaker, right next to our own John Crockett. And we're having a club meeting in which we were discussing, right now we are in the portion of our club room that has the most space. There are 3 storefronts, but our HO club, which was still emerging, only had 2 storefronts. And we had a decision to make. What would happen if we give up our 3 storefronts, trade down with the HO group to 2 storefronts, and take the empty depot, which was right next door, and use that as a storage for our NTRAK modules? Could we do something with that 2-store space? Well, that's what we did. And here is Livingstone Sitzman. This is back in 2015. Those of you who know Stone know him. He's a lot taller now. He's in college, and I couldn't help but put this photo in. He's helping us move out of that large space on that given year. Okay, so here's those storefront that I was referring to. This is where we were, and then here are the 2 that are adjacent. And then over here, darkened, is where our storage depot is. So we made the move to that side. And that's where our layout is located today. You can see this Google image of the entire shopping center, and the entire RF&P model railroaders has this back quadrant. And right here, I'm putting the pointer right over Richmond area NTRAK. And you can see we were in the process of clearing up those windows. Okay, just doing a time check here. Oh boy, we're getting along quick here, so I'm going to speed up. You can see us vacuuming the floors, and we immediately finished the floors by putting our layout in. You can see that whole process by looking at the timestamps. Only took us 2 hours. So, there's something we learn as NTRAKers, isn't there? We know how to set things up. We know how to take them down and pack away and be on the road real quick, don't we? Yes, it's called skills. All right. Now, here is, I'm going to fast forward through some of this takedown. We're conversing amongst ourselves about what we could do next. And here's what we did next, right? Here's a design of the RailTrack. We'll refer to it as the analog layout. We built a standing in place analog layout that would allow us to run our DC locomotives while we knew we were going to take several years to build a digital layout. So for a number of years, all we had was an analog layout and a digital layout. And fortunately, we had a bunch of hard workers. We had a lot of guys that like to work together. Teamwork makes the dream work, right? We've heard that many times. Here we are putting pencil to paper and sketching it out. And here I am on social media posting for Richmond Area NTRAK in February 2016. Richmond Area NTRAK installed a new DC-powered home layout this week. It's a blank canvas ready for the scenic magic. Actually, back up there, you can see Tom. We refer to this kind of as our cornerstone. He's writing down the date we set up the bench work, the dates that we actually laid the first track, and the date that we ran the first train. Very important to have these little historic moments recorded somewhere on your layout. All right, so we had several versions of the layout. This was the first one that we ultimately didn't go with. Here was the one we ultimately did go with. So we put that analog layout to the right. And this huge area here we have reserved for the DCC layout. In the back room, this is pretty much the area where we enter each day, and this is a workshop back here. All right, so now to bench work and track. Well, some of you really like the dimensions, and so here's the detailed numbers. 24 feet by 21 inches is the Blue Ridge and Western Railroad, 504 square feet. That yields 431 linear feet of main line. And we deliver it in 3 levels. It is a 3-level model railroad. And in addition to that, we have that analog track, 14 feet by 12, 168 linear feet of main line. I can tell you even just today, our members, in fact, even a new member just joined today, was running his analog only. He did not have digital yet. He was running his train on that layout. So it's always good to have multiple options for many people. All right, let's see for the next slide. All right, so here was our layout team, and they're throwing out the bench work design, and the next slide shows that a little bit more particularly. You'll notice that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This layout was built in 9 segments, and there's a reason for that. We are a modular model railroad club. We lease the space that we're in, and any day, the shopping center could decide that they've got a better tenant than us and throw us out. And we didn't want to destroy a layout when that happened. So we designed our layout so it would be modular. We could separate it into unit pieces, all designed to be carried sideways through regular storefront doors. This is also the design that was drawn by Dave Melling, our club electrician. And you'll notice that in addition to those boards, he's also drawn in our bus cables that he mounted below. We'll see some photos of those. And also the identification of the location of our boosters. So we do have our layout divided into 2 power districts. And that really, there will be more to fill in those gaps later on in articles and other videos about how to avoid electrical shorts in your layout. But one way to do it is to split the layout in half and just isolate all the problem areas. All right. So here we are, started on that bench work. You can see it's a cookie cutter style. We laid out the main bench, laid the plywood sheets across the main bench, and then started to put the paper down and draw where the main lines were going to go. And then we took a jigsaw, cut out all those pieces, and then raised them up on these little pieces here that you see. Okay, and so that ends up with this nice structure as it's rising. And one night it was just cool. I got to take this picture on February 2nd of 2017. And the coolest thing was watching everyone working in teams of 2 quietly for almost 2 hours. Model railroading is art with a functional canvas. And it was just neat to see our teams coming together with this project. Here we are covering those windows. The windows definitely needed some treatment. And you can see our guys, Dave and Tom, raising up the level basically to our highest level, the 3rd level of our layout. You can see this picture here really shows that difference between what I call the 0-inch mark, the 4-inch, and the 8-inch mark. So that's the different levels of our layout. And you'll see that there is a significant reason to do a layout multi-tiered, and it has to do with scenery. at the end of the day, you can do different scenes on different levels, and they all look like one scene to a general public that's untrained. But to a camera, if you take a picture of that scene, you're going to actually see just the scene at the 0-inch level and then the 8-inch level. So we're trying to get as much bang for a buck out of this layout space. And you can see the entire layout space here. Here's another side, and you can see the track work has already been laid in this shot. And all you need to know about the track is that there's only 4 tracks in here. There's a 2-track main, which we refer to as the red and the blue. And then back here, there is a rise and fall. So the red track literally can cross over. There's a double crossover, and it goes to what we refer to as the yellow line. Yellow line comes around the backside and then ends up on this middle level. The middle level is an entire another area. There'll be territories that we'll describe in the narrative, but also at the very upper level, that is also another incline at the back by this mountain back here. So many options you can do when you have multiple tiers. All right, so early on, this was the diagram that was on our dry erase board. It basically just showed the basic shape of our layout, and it showed the outer line, showed the grade levels, just as a point of reference, made it easy to explain to other folks. And then here's a diagram that I put together that just started to show the scenery. Where was our yard? Where was the REA? Where was the ice plant? You know, if you needed fuel, where could you go for that? And so we were starting to put together the idea of an operation. Well, you know what we didn't have yet? We didn't yet have a theme. We didn't have a story. No, we needed to get done our electrical first. So here you see our theme was twist, strip, solder, and repeat. So the way we made our wires, you can see the spools back here. We had multiple color wires. You saw all those bus colors that were associated. We would twist those wires using a drill right to long lengths. And then we would strip the ends of them, solder those, and repeat the process. Very simple and duplicatable once you get the hang of that. All right, I need to focus now in on this electrical. There's Dave Melling. He is a master electrician by trade. And here you can see the way we use our bus. We anchor them to each module and send them off in different directions so we can drop our feeders directly down to those bus cables. And here's Tom and Dave just drawing out some of those plans as we went from level to level. Always try, fail, and adjust, right? This was actually a jig that Dave built to demonstrate how he was going to take wires and split switches. So we used Pico code 55 track throughout, and we used Pico switches. And one of the things about switches is that you usually have the center portion of the switch that's unwired, or it's not electrically, I don't have the vocabulary to handle this, but bottom line is you can end up with either shorts or you can end up with dead track with trains that will stop. Well, Dave came up with an ingenious way to eliminate that by literally wiring right through the switch, and he demonstrated this on a jig. So we'll have a lot more to show you about that in future articles. Then Dave put together these bus power boxes. Some of you, you'll just be able to look at this and know exactly what you're looking at. We've got the DB, the command stations, PM42s. We got the power supply to begin with. And then in the back, we have a very, very substantial wiring harness that allows you to connect to all of those bus cables. So I would say that what I've learned from Dave Melling over the years, organization. When you get organized and you use color codes to map out where everything is, you are way ahead of the game from electronics. All right, so, oh my goodness, it snowed in the room. Well, once we covered up, we had to cover all of that that plywood, and we did that using plaster cloth, and we used foam risers to kind of create the elevations, and then we covered those foam risers with wire mesh, and then the wire mesh was then covered with plaster cloth. All right, so let's get into the conclusions here on scenery. One of the books that we had on our bookshelf was How to Operate Your Model Railroad. It was a Kalmbach publishing book. And here is one segment of that book. It basically describes that common model railroaders will take an imaginary railroad in a prototype setting with prototype railroad connections. Modelers who use this fascinating approach might go so far as to mapping out their theoretical railroad on state, county, or geographical maps. And they might travel through the area supposedly served by their line, and to take notes about the geography and local architecture and industries. Well, in our case, the model railroaders, as we built the benchwork, we had a vision. we had a vision that since we're in Virginia, we wanted to do something that was like the mountains of Virginia, maybe even the Blue Ridge Mountains. And there was one huge railroad that did do a lot of work in the Blue Ridge Mountains. That was known as the Clinchfield Railroad. And in fact, one of our members owns to this day the original model railroad or Clinchfield Railroad. And so we didn't really want to do that again. Like we already have a Clinchfield. So what we really wanted was something that represented the region, but didn't necessarily get wedded to a specific road name. And so here is a geographic map. It's a Google Earth image. And what you see, I told you we had a red and blue line on the lower level. The middle level, we had a yellow line. And in the upper level, we had a green. And so for the first couple of years, we would look at this diagram on the wall to literally trace where our train was going through the region, whether it was from Bluefield, Virginia to Bristol, or from Lebanon, where our brew yard was, or up to Warncliffe, West Virginia. We could even go down to my picture's in the way here. That's why I told myself to move it. Independence and Meat Camp. Meat Camp, North Carolina was another main destination location for us. So using a map helped us to plot out where we were going. And that helped me. I'm a storyteller, as you can tell. And it's obviously very more apparent even now. I like to tell the story. And in this case, I crafted a newsletter called the Brew News and started off with the headline, Born to Win. In 1945, following the end of World War II, a group of U.S. investors, mostly with stakes in the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad, formed the Blue Ridge and Western Railroad in order to compete head-to-head with the Clinchfield Railroad. The Brew Railroad became known simply as the Brew. And so that's really where the foundation of our story comes from. Now, I have to make an admission. My club members who are in the club room right now are chuckling or saying, JM, we didn't vote for all of that. I mean, yeah, I did write the narrative. And it is also a true statement that our story is not yet finished being written. There are many other ways in which we're interchanging with the Norfolk and Western, with the Virginian. There's so many ways in which this story can evolve. But the bottom line here is that you start. You start with a story in order to create the excitement and enthusiasm, take the layout to the next level. So here we are, we were starting with that analog layout, which was already complete. And we had this little tower over here called the Milton Tower. That was the decal that came on it. And so we referred to this layout as the Milton and Monterey branch line. Monterey, which is over here, it's a little town that I crafted after Monterey, Virginia. So that kind of started us in this direction with a map of Virginia on the wall, where we started to look at, okay, where might we be building this model railroad? I mean, it was a functional model railroad, but it didn't yet have the story. And so we put up here on the wall, you can see we had to have a vote. And at one point we talked, well, not the Clinchfield, but how about the Clinch Mountain Railroad? Or maybe even the Ashland Springs Terminal Railway. I mean, we are in Ashland after all. Or the Allegheny Highlands, I don't know who proposed that one. I had no idea about that one. But the winner at the end of the day was the Bra Railroad. Whoa, what? The Blue Ridge ampersand, what? Yeah, Bra. Okay, that was a little weird. To be honest, guys, as I showed you earlier on the bar top, we make a lot of decisions after shows at restaurants, and we do enjoy a brew or two on a time or two, yeah. And so the Brew Railroad just had a nice ring to it. We liked the sound of it. That is why the name of our railroad is what it is. And what you're looking at here in the background was some of what we were contemplating with those windows. And so this is a little bit of side here, but did you know that you can take shower curtains? Shower curtains are a very inexpensive way to buy large pieces of canvas using a pipe and drape system like PVC pipe, hanging it and suspending it. You can actually make a nice backdrop for your railroad. This is a concept that we talked about 3 years ago, have not yet done it. So this is on its way. All right, scenery. What you're looking at here in the middle are some pictures that we took representative samples from the Clinchfield, and you can see the terrain, the way the rocks and the greenery applied. And so we knew we needed to come to something along those lines. And so we started painting the plaster, the hydrocal sheets that we had applied, and using some of the very standard color systems. And then we ultimately finished that off with some airbrushing. All right, along the way, we created a ticket. Yeah, because we do have open houses at the clubhouse, so the general public comes through. We decided it might be fun to hand out kids, hand them a ticket. and they could actually punch all the locations, all the stations that they came to along the way. And so here it is, Blue Ridge and Western Railroad system, 4 lines in 4 states. It's West Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia. And then just recently, and we're getting real close to the end here, Facebook, we posted a variety of photos that describe this narrative. The Blue Ridge and Western, the Blue Railroad is our fictional competitor to the clinch field. Let me get my photo out of the way again here. All right. Our fictional narrative includes investors with stakes, as I mentioned, C&O, plus side agreements with the Southern, the Seaboard, N&W, L&N, and the Virginian. And there's just some of that represented on the layout. Mountaineer District, which is Division 4. I'm running my line over the top of it here. It's traversed West Virginia to Eastern Tennessee range of Appalachia. One of those West Virginia towns, southeast of Warncliffe, featured the Stan and Son Sitzman sawmill. There's a sawmill, and you saw Stone was that young guy in 2015 that was pulling the carts. Yeah, he doesn't look like that anymore, but a great father-son team in our Model Railroad Club, and that was their, I present this to you simply so that you know that every single location on the layout we named after club members. So we took the plausibly prototypical fictional scenery, but then took our club members over the decades and found ways to get everybody's narrative into the story. And so it's just a way to keep everybody invested in what we're doing. Nearby, War, West Virginia, featured the Black Mountain Coal Tipple #2. And this is our highest elevation. You're seeing the top end of the peak of it. I'm standing right literally at the corner of the room, poking my camera up high and looking down. That coal tipple is just below this ridge. And we're looking basically at what represents West Virginia. And over here, we're looking at Bluefield, Virginia, the beginnings of Lebanon, Virginia on the lower level, and then all the way off to Lebanon, Tennessee. And then the middle peninsula is North Carolina. We refer to it as Crowder, after Bob Crowder, that very first guy who brought the construction tools to us. But this location is basically a branch line to Boone, North Carolina. So we have basically the 4-state region covered in this area. Not all Blue Railroad revenue is coal and lumber. For Damascus, Virginia, featured the DeMasi Fuel Terminal, named after our beloved Tony DeMasi. And we also have the Corbeau Consolidated Metal Corporation, crushed metal on the loads. That Daniel Chu I mentioned to you earlier, he's a talented guy, and he likes to design locomotives. So here's the brew with a logo that he designed on there. And here we have the Conwell Consolidated Fruit Growers platform right there in part of the heart of Damascus, which I'm circling there. Nearby in Lodi, Virginia, between the forks of the Holston River, was the Melling Power and Light Company. Well, go figure. You know, our club electrician's name is David Melling. We might as well make the main power plant named after Melling, right? He's a very shy guy. He really doesn't like the fact that I make that the case, but I think it was a great way to honor all the work that he did for us. All right, and across the border into Meat Camp, North Carolina, was the Crockett Brothers Steak Company Slaughterhouse. And there's all the cattle basically waiting to go off to, you know where they go. Steaks, what's for dinner? Hopefully I didn't make you all hungry. In the fictional town of Crowder, a branch line away from Boone in the southern interchange, was the Steiner Tie Treatment Facility. Carl Steiner, another member who's since left us, but he has left his legacy here with the ties. We would take some of that lumber cut at the Sitzman and Son sawmill and have a load delivered up here to the second level where we could then treat those ties with creosote. And we've seen several prototypical examples of these operations right here in the hills. Crowder was also the home to the Buzzard's Roost Coal Tipple. And I will just tell you that it's called Buzzard's Roost Coal. You can barely make it out, but right there, Dave Beasley, who designed this and installed this segment, installed the buzzard on the top of the tree so that it could be referred to as Buzzard's Roost. Yeah, you can have fun along the way, don't you? Mountain City, Tennessee had a station stop just behind the Beasley Mountain network of tunnels. This is that Mountain City station. And there was also a station stop in Glade Spring, Virginia. So there's our Glade Spring station. And just above both of those locations was Devine, Tennessee, a fictional town near Kingsport. And it was not to be ignored. Passenger and freight both serviced the spur just southwest of Beasley Mountain. And you can see a nice chapel sitting there just inside of it. And near the heart of the Brew Railroad, northeast from Tazewell and Jerry's Junction, and south of Clinch Mountain was the Coghlan Quarry. And one of those early photos you saw of our layout in the Science Museum was Ed Coghlan. He left us more than 20 years ago, but we decided to go ahead and honor him with a quarry on the layout. There was another member of our club named Steve Schott, and we named this Schott Rock and Block. It's also there in the town of Tannersville, Virginia. Bluefield, northeast of Tazewell, had T-TRAK serving small line side industries, and it had so many connections with the C&O, Virginia, and N&W that we designated an entire siding just for those trains. So we've got the ability to set up tracks and bring trains in from off the layout and install them onto the siding so that we can have prototypical operations. I'm not going to have the time to show you in this presentation, but I'm going to show you some of the evidence of operations. This is called a click chart. It's also known as a car location information chart. Here's an example. Along the west windows, we have a wall, and here is the diagram. I told you we have 4 tracks, track 1, track 2, track 3, and track 4, but I also told you that we have a peninsular layout. So when you're on the outside of the peninsula, you're on the outside. When you're on the inside of the peninsula, guess where you are? Yeah, you're on the inside. So if you just followed this track click chart, it would describe to you in the wood, kind of the brown, where are all of the scenic elements to describe. You know, we're going to go from the outside through Jeb Stuart Tunnel, across the North Holston River, into the Holston Hole, and that's going to bring us to the town of Lebanon. Lebanon is where our brew yard resides, and it's got ice platforms, fuel racks, ash, coal, and sand. So you can see that in that little example, and I'm going to go forward twice here, there is the north wall of our layout, same concept, all the tracks identified, and a click chart, car location. So as we're looking at these charts, you could locate your cars along these charts and even identify how long your sidings and spurs are. So this is all the beginnings of operating your model railroad. And this is something I know that Razor, Steve Gillett, has given us some very specific instruction on even in the past year. All right, so among the things we do is we take the newsletter, we put those maps up on the wall, the geography maps, the click charts, and the videos that we have, all of which is designed to teach our newest members of the general public, to basically give them the story, tell them the narrative of the Brew Railroad. And so today, this is what our club windows look like. We obviously created a shade effect, and then we have those shower curtains with some train themes facing outward. And then we have some other black shower curtains that basically prevent the very intense sun from baking our layout. But on the inside of those same curtains, at some point in the future, we will have scenery. Right now, you can see it's just the black curtains. All right, I snuck this one in. Everybody can dream, and this is my dream. There is our clubhouse. And I could just envision 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7-story building that includes room for a lot more club layouts. You know, hey, we can all dream, right? Dave Mellion doing some electrical controls. Here are some of those diagrams that we did very early on. Guys, I'm basically running out of steam here because we are virtually at the end. I guess I could finish with this. Here I'm painting the sides of the layout. Instead of just a brown or a black, I'm creating tree color. Why did I do that? Well, when you look at these scenes and you focus your camera in very close, you're invariably going to get some of this backdrop in the background of your photo. And so what I found that this technique did is it makes the sides look more like the tree canopies that are around it. And so the photos just have a lot more realistic feel to them. And let's see, we did the rocking and okay, guys, you can find the last 3 slides here. You can find more information about us on YouTube. We have our own YouTube channel, Richmond Area NRail. You can find us at RailSmith-RailTrack. That would be the @ term for YouTube. And of course, we've got all kinds of videos down here about the layout itself, including the creation of a train show and all kinds of neat videos. And then we actually have our website. Website is at ranrail.org. And that's where people can join our team. But we also have all of the links to our videos posted on the website, ranrail.org. And ranrail.org, the website, came after the creation of the Facebook page. And I know that a lot of folks have left Facebook for good reasons, and other people never joined Facebook for even better reasons. But for those of us that hang on, I'll be honest, most of the photos you saw today were preserved in the archives of our Facebook account. So if you're interested in finding out more about the history of us, you can go to all 3 of those sites. All right, I'm now going to stop the screen share. And I see we're already 20 minutes past the hour, so we've gone a long ways today. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you, all of you, members of NRail and the NTRaK audience that you came from, because it was your work over decades and the inspiration that led to the Blue Ridge and Western Railroad. And it was a real privilege to tell a story and to give the pat on the back to the guys who've worked so hard to make it happen. All right, Razor. Back to you.
Thank you, Jan. That concludes our presentation for February. Again, our March ZoomTRAK meeting is scheduled for the 11th of March, 4 weeks from now. Bruce has just popped up the poll, which we would like you to fill out before we shut down the Zoom meeting. So each of you, please do this if you would. The feedback helps us plan future presentations to keep everybody interested. So I'm going to quit talking and fill this out myself, and we will see you all next month. Thank you for attending. Please tell your friends about us. They do need to be members of NRail in order to attend ZoomTRAK. It was only last month we had the one-time opening. And at this point, if you have any questions, now is the time to ask them. Just unmute yourself and ask any questions that you may have, and our presenters will be able to answer them.
Hello. Where's all the money come from? Who pays to turn on the lights in that place? What about the rent?
Great.
It's a great question. In short, we have a relationship with the Science Museum of Virginia, done a show for the 45th year this year. And when we got, I told you at the beginning, we had our clubhouse and our workrooms located in the museum. Well, they got a huge federal grant in order to refurbish the museum, and we got kicked out in 1998. That's when we went shopping for a new home, and we told them, if you want us to continue these wildly popular shows, we're going to need some revenues to pay for the lease. And so it literally came from that. So the shows that we do literally keep the roof on over our heads.
Wow.
I'm reading through the chat comments. I see a lot of folks that chimed in, had the opportunity to run with us, run on the DCC layouts at Unconvention. Yeah, I know so many people had that experience. Where's the cost of the lease? Got you there, Jim. Well, I haven't seen the latest invoice, so I'm not sure exactly how much they're charging us for the lease, but it's pretty much a wash. What we do at the show covers us.
Good job, JM.
Thanks a lot.
Very well done. Lots of hard work on that story and by your team on the layout.
Appreciate that.
It was well worth the extra time to me to see that. Very inspiring.
All right. Well, we'll get a chance to see it again when the recording comes out.
Yeah.
Thanks.
There it is.
I must have missed something.
Hey, Daniel Chu, wave your hand, buddy.
Oh,
Yeah. I think Lowell's still here. There he is,
Daniel.
Daniel is a huge fan of yours, Lowell.
Hello, I just love your train cars. I have a ton of them.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Time for
Appreciate
everybody.
yeah, everybody loves it. That's for damn.
Nice.
You guys are great.
Auto train.
Steve, you can just keep on rolling, man. He hasn't cut it off yet. Bruce is rolling.
How many viewers do we have?
Okay, do you want to see the layout?
There you go. Yeah. Nice.
Oh, no, he's white.
We're live streaming now
That's terrific.
until they cut us off
Yep.
or until I go for supper.
That's a great idea. Steve, I'm not going to put you on the spot and make you call out all the locations you're passing.
Let's see what we got. Mountain City,
Yep,
Tennessee.
Mountain City.
And
maybe I guess next time we'll go into detail and stuff.
Well, you know, I could really
yeah.
go for a steak right now. Let's see the Crockett Brothers Steak Company. It's right behind you.
For all the remaining ZoomTRAK viewers, if we do
There it
in-depth
is.
operations, it will not go over the time limit. we at RailSmith can guarantee at least that.
Daniel, dare I say your nickname, Choo Choo?
You know,
Choo choo.
There
I
he
can
is.
say that I have a mustache at least. I can't believe he just said that in front of ZoomTRAK.
You're famous,
Yeah,
man. And there
You're
is
live
the
on
Demasi
ZoomTRAK.
Fuel Terminal.
So
Steve, did you set up some coal cars up there at the coal?
I was running a coal train. I just stopped it, so no, I didn't set up any up there for
If you want to
today.
show them the Great Northern Time Freight.
Yeah,
Great Northern Time Freight.
so
Yeah, let's see Daniel Chu's Great Northern. I think he's earned it.
Well, so I might have mentioned my Lowell Smith cars. The reason I discovered them was because they were Great Northern cars. And I love Great Northern cars.
and one of the scenic spots, really. I don't know, maybe have to get a little zoom going in here, but
Yeah,
that section along the river.
definitely.
So if you're looking at the stream right now, we got about 70, 80 car Great Northern freight train parked here at Lebanon Yard on the Blue Ridge and Western. The 3 units, including the Great Northern number 400, the Hustle Muscle, just finished refueling here in Lebanon, and they're about to go up Difficult Hill. And Difficult Hill on the Blue Ridge and Western is about a 3-4% grade. Very tough stretch of railroad. If you are running a long train up that grade, you're definitely going to need helpers, and you're going to have a very bad time if you're trying to run any train more than 30 cars off that.
Chu, I've never seen you have a bad time.
Well, trust me, there have been moments where I've had bad times.
All right, Steve, the closer you get underneath that TV set, you're probably going to get some feedback.
Actually, I'm unplugged, so there shouldn't be any feedback. I'm only on my phone, unfortunately.
Good deal. Look at those fuel racks. That was a creation of our own Tom Kaiser, and I'm so glad to see his fuel racks getting some attention. Yep. Now, we just had another member give us a clinic this morning on using Arduino. And I think that if you push your camera down immediately and look at the turntable, it is a controlled turntable, but we could definitely use those Arduino controls because that error message has been looking at us for a while now.
Yeah, I think one of the tracks actually, it shorts sometimes, so that might help, but that's for another time.
Here's a 1968 Empire Builder with a mixed rainbow contest.
Wow.
Livingston has his tank train.
I used did.
Not
Stop.
the tanks you're thinking of, the other tanks.
Are those the 3D printed ones?
Yes.
Nice.
If there are no more questions, thank you all for attending, and we'll see you next month. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, guys, I hate to interrupt this, but I'm going to have to shut down the meeting now anyway.
That's okay, Bruce. Man, thank you for letting us roll as long as you did.
Oh, yeah.
We'll go
Sure.
get supper.
All right. We'll see you all later.
Somebody
Good
wake
night.
up wake up Ron Hawkins.
Bye now.